20 forgotten diner breakfasts from the 1970s that disappeared forever. Remember when diner breakfasts meant massive platters that could fuel you all day? Back in the 1970s, every corner diner served hearty combinations of eggs, hash, and endless coffee refills for pocket change, until fast-paced lifestyles and chain restaurants made them disappear forever. Let's take a trip back and explore 20 forgotten diner breakfasts from the 1970s that disappeared forever. The Working Man's Foundation. Picture this. It's 1971, and dawn breaks over industrial America as factory workers, construction crews, and truckers file into chrome and vinyl diners for breakfast that could power them through 12-hour shifts. These weren't delicate continental breakfasts. They were massive platters designed to sustain hard-working Americans through demanding physical labor. 1. The steelworkers' special-dominated breakfast counters in Pittsburgh, Detroit, and every industrial town across the Rust Belt. This mountain of food featured 3 eggs cooked any style, thick-cut bacon, breakfast sausage links, hash browns that covered half the plate, and 2 slices of buttered toast. The eggs were cooked in the bacon grease for extra flavor, creating golden yolks that ran into the crispy hash browns when broken. The bacon was cooked until it shattered at the touch of a fork, while the sausage links were browned evenly on the flat-top grill until they split open to reveal juicy, seasoned pork inside. Hash browns were pressed flat with a spatula and cooked until they formed a golden, lacy crust that could be cut with a fork, then seasoned with salt and pepper while still sizzling. Coffee came in heavy ceramic mugs that were refilled constantly throughout the meal, and the total bill rarely exceeded $2. 2. The trucker's tank up emerged at highway diners along major trucking routes, designed to keep long-haul drivers alert and satisfied for hundreds of miles. The centerpiece was a massive stack of pancakes, not 3, but 5 thick buttermilk cakes that rose like fluffy pillows on the plate. These were made from scratch batter that included real buttermilk and baking powder, creating pancakes so light they seemed to float above the plate. Each pancake was golden brown with slightly crispy edges and a tender, fluffy interior that absorbed maple syrup like a sponge. They were accompanied by scrambled eggs cooked in butter until they formed soft, creamy curds, crispy bacon that snapped when bitten, breakfast sausage links, and a choice of hash browns or grits depending on regional preference. 3. The construction crew combo was served at 5 a.m. sharp in diners near job sites, featuring a unique combination that provided sustained energy for physical labor. 2 thick slices of French toast were cut from day-old bread, soaked in a rich custard made with eggs, milk, and vanilla, then grilled on the flat top until golden brown and slightly crispy on the outside, while remaining soft and custardy inside. These were topped with 2 fried eggs cooked over easy, so the yolks would run down into the French toast, creating layers of rich flavor. Country fried steak was pounded thin, breaded, and fried until golden, then smothered in white sausage gravy made from pan drippings, flour, and milk. Hash browns and grits completed the plate, providing the carbohydrates needed to fuel hours of manual labor. 4. The Railroad Man's Red Eye catered to the irregular schedules of railway workers who might be eating breakfast at any hour. This featured a 6-ounce grilled steak cooked quickly on a hot grill to maintain tenderness, 2 eggs over easy with runny yolks, hash browns pressed into a golden cake, and a side of red-eye gravy made from coffee and ham drippings. The red-eye gravy was created by deglazing the pan with strong black coffee and mixing it with ham drippings and a touch of flour, creating a rich, dark sauce with a complex coffee flavor that paired perfectly with fluffy buttermilk biscuits. Regional specialties. Picture this. It's 1973, and America's regional diner culture is at its peak, with local specialties reflecting the unique ingredients, traditions, and tastes of different parts of the country. These breakfasts couldn't be found just anywhere. They were tied to specific regions where local ingredients and cultural influences created distinctive morning meals that told the story of their communities. 5. The California Sunshine Scramble brought West Coast health consciousness to traditional diner fare by incorporating fresh avocado, sprouts, and tomatoes into fluffy, scrambled eggs. The eggs were cracked fresh and whisked with a splash of cream before being cooked slowly in real butter over medium-low heat, constantly stirred with a rubber spatula to create soft, creamy curds that never became tough or rubbery. 6. The Texas Hill Country Migas transformed leftover tortilla chips into a spectacular breakfast dish that became a staple in diners throughout the Southwest. Day-old corn tortilla chips were quickly fried in a cast-iron skillet with beaten eggs, creating a mixture where the chips softened slightly but retained some texture. Diced jalapenos, white onions, and fresh tomatoes were sautéed until the onions became translucent and the jalapenos released their heat, then scrambled with the eggs and chips until everything was hot and well combined. The mixture was topped with a generous handful of shredded Mexican cheese that melted from the residual heat, then garnished with fresh cilantro and served with warm flour tortillas, creamy refried beans, and bright green salsa verde, made from roasted tomatillos and serrano peppers. 7. The Maine Lobster Benedict elevated the classic Eggs Benedict by replacing Canadian bacon with fresh lobster meat that had been removed from the shell that morning. English muffin halves were toasted until golden brown and lightly buttered, then topped with generous chunks of sweet lobster meat that had been quickly sautéed in butter with a touch of fresh tarragon. Perfectly poached eggs were placed on top, with whites that were set but yolks that remained liquid and golden. The crowning glory was rich hollandaise sauce made from egg yolks, butter, and lemon juice, whisked constantly over gentle heat until it reached the perfect consistency, thick enough to coat the eggs, but light enough to flow down into every crevice. Southern comfort. Picture this. It's 1974, and Southern diners are perfecting the art of comfort food breakfasts that combine traditional ingredients with generous hospitality. These weren't just meals. They were expressions of Southern culture that welcomed strangers and nourished communities with flavors passed down through generations. 8. The Southern Shrimp and Grits Supreme combined creamy stone-ground grits with plump Gulf shrimp in a rich gravy that showcased the best of coastal Southern cooking. The grits were cooked slowly in a mixture of water and whole milk, stirred constantly to prevent lumps, then finished with butter and cream until they reached a consistency that was creamy but not too thick. Large Gulf shrimp were quickly sautéed in bacon drippings with diced onions, bell peppers, and celery until the vegetables were soft and the shrimp were pink and curled. A roux made from flour and the bacon drippings was used to thicken the mixture into a rich gravy seasoned with cayenne pepper, paprika, and fresh thyme. The shrimp and gravy were spooned over the creamy grits, then garnished with crispy crumbled bacon and chopped green onions, served alongside warm buttermilk biscuits that were perfect for soaking up every drop of the flavorful sauce. 9. The Country Ham and Red Eye Special featured thick slices of salt-cured country ham grilled until the edges were crispy, served with red-eye gravy made from the pan drippings and strong black coffee. The ham was sliced thick and scored around the edges to prevent curling, then grilled on a hot flat-up until it developed a caramelized crust while remaining tender inside. The red-eye gravy was made by deglazing the pan with fresh brewed coffee, scraping up all the flavorful brown bits, then whisking in a touch of flour to create a thin but flavorful sauce. This was served with fluffy buttermilk biscuits made from scratch, creamy grits, and 2 eggs cooked to order. 10. The Bourbon Street Beignet Breakfast brought New Orleans flair to diner menus with fresh beignet dusted with powdered sugar, served alongside café, au lait, and andouille sausage. The beignets were made from yeasted dough that was rolled thin, cut into squares, and fried in hot oil until they puffed up golden and crispy outside while remaining tender inside. They were immediately dusted with powdered sugar while still warm, creating a sweet cloud that mixed with a rich coffee and chicory blend that was served with steamed milk. The hangover helpers. Picture this. It's 1975, and the party culture of the 70s has created a demand for breakfast dishes specifically designed to cure hangovers and restore weary partygoers to functional status. These hearty, greasy, and often spicy combinations became legendary among college students, night shift workers, and anyone who had enjoyed too much fun the night before. 11. The Hair of the Dog hash featured crispy corned beef hash topped with 2 fried eggs, spicy jalapenos, and a generous helping of melted cheese, all served with buttered rye toast and strong black coffee. The corned beef hash was made from scratch using leftover corned beef that was chopped fine and mixed with diced potatoes and onions, then pressed flat on the griddle and cooked until the bottom formed a golden, crispy crust that could be flipped in sections. The hash was seasoned with black pepper and paprika, then topped with 2 eggs fried in the rendered fat until the whites were set, but the yolks remained runny. Sliced jalapenos were scattered over the top, while everything was still hot, followed by a generous handful of sharp cheddar cheese that melted into the hash and eggs. The combination of crispy potatoes, salty corned beef, rich egg yolks, and spicy peppers created the perfect balance of flavors and textures to soothe an aching head and settle an uneasy stomach. 12. The Bloody Mary breakfast plate incorporated the flavors of the famous hangover cocktail into a solid meal that could restore both energy and equilibrium. Scrambled eggs were beaten with a splash of tomato juice and a few drops of Worcestershire sauce before being cooked slowly in butter until they formed soft, creamy curds with a subtle savory flavor that mimicked the popular drink. Diced celery and fresh tomatoes were sautéed briefly and folded into the eggs just before serving, adding crunch and freshness. The eggs were accompanied by thick breakfast sausage links that had been browned until the casing snapped, crispy hash browns that were seasoned with celery salt, and a slice of thick-cut bacon that was garnished with a celery stick, creating a visual reference to the cocktail. 13. The Greasy Spoon Supreme made no apologies for its indulgent nature, featuring bacon, sausage, and ham alongside 2 eggs, hash browns, and pancakes all prepared with extra fat and butter. 3 strips of thick-cut bacon were cooked until they were crispy and slightly charred, while breakfast sausage patties were formed by hand and cooked until they were brown and slightly caramelized on both sides. A thick slice of country ham was grilled until the edges were crispy and the fat was rendered. 2 eggs were fried in the accumulated grease until the whites were lacy and brown around the edges while the yolks remained bright and runny. The health food revolution. Picture this. It's 1976, and the health food movement is beginning to influence even traditional diners as customers start requesting lighter, more nutritious options alongside their usual hearty fare. These breakfasts represented early attempts to incorporate whole grains, fresh fruits, and lighter preparations while maintaining the generous portions and satisfying flavors that diner customers expected. 14. The Granola Goddess Parfait layered homemade granola with fresh yogurt and seasonal fruits in tall glass parfait cups, creating a breakfast that looked as good as it tasted. The granola was made fresh in the diner kitchen using rolled oats, chopped almonds, sunflower seeds, and honey, then baked on sheet pans until it was golden brown and fragrant. The mixture was stirred every 10 minutes during baking to ensure even browning, then cooled completely before being stored in airtight containers to maintain crispness. Thick Greek yogurt was layered with the granola and whatever fresh fruit was in season, strawberries and blueberries in summer, sliced peaches and raspberries in late summer, or diced apples and pears in fall. Each layer was carefully spooned to create distinct stripes visible through the glass, and the parfait was topped with a final sprinkle of granola and a drizzle of honey. 15. The whole wheat everything featured whole wheat pancakes made from stone ground flour and served with fresh fruit compote instead of traditional maple syrup. The pancake batter included whole wheat flour, wheat germ for extra nutrition, eggs, buttermilk, and a touch of honey for natural sweetness. The batter was mixed just until the ingredients were combined, then cooked on a well-seasoned griddle until the pancakes were golden brown and cooked through but still fluffy inside. The fruit compote was made by gently cooking seasonal fruits with minimal sugar and a splash of lemon juice until they broke down slightly, but still maintained some texture. 16. The vegetarian protein power combined a 3-egg omelet filled with cheese, mushrooms, peppers, and fresh sprouts, served with whole grain toast and a colorful fresh fruit salad. The omelet was made by whisking 3 fresh eggs with a splash of milk until they were light and frothy, then cooking them in a well-seasoned omelet pan with a touch of butter. Button mushrooms were sliced and sautéed until they released their moisture and became golden brown, while bell peppers and onions were cooked until they were tender, but still had some bite. The exotic experiments. Picture this. It's 1977, and American diners are beginning to experiment with international flavors as travel becomes more accessible and ethnic restaurants introduce new tastes to suburban palates. 17. The International House Special brought together flavors from around the world on one plate, featuring French toast made with brioche bread, English bacon, Irish black pudding, and German-style breakfast sausage, all served with Canadian maple syrup. This multicultural combination represented the adventurous spirit of the late 70s, when diners were willing to experiment with unfamiliar ingredients and preparations. The brioche French toast was made by soaking thick slices of rich, buttery brioche in a custard made with eggs, cream, and vanilla, then cooking them on a griddle until they were golden brown and slightly crispy outside, while remaining custardy inside. 18. The Mediterranean morning incorporated Greek and Italian influences with a spinach and feta omelet, served alongside grilled tomatoes, Italian sausage, and toast points drizzled with olive oil and herbs. The omelet was made with fresh eggs and filled with sautéed spinach that had been wilted with garlic and seasoned with salt and pepper, then combined with crumbled feta cheese that added a tangy, salty flavor. The tomatoes were cut in half and grilled cut side down until they developed grill marks and concentrated flavors, then seasoned with oregano, basil, and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Italian sausage was formed into patties and cooked until browned and cooked through, providing bold, herby flavors that were more complex than traditional breakfast sausage. 19. The Asian Fusion Awakening represented one of the earliest attempts to incorporate Asian flavors into American breakfast, featuring scrambled eggs with green onions and soy sauce, served with fried rice mixed with bacon and vegetables, plus toast cut into triangles for dipping. The eggs were scrambled with a touch of soy sauce that added umami depth, then topped with sliced green onions for freshness and color. The fried rice was made with day-old rice that was stir-fried with diced bacon, scrambled eggs, and mixed vegetables including peas, carrots, and onions, seasoned with soy sauce and a touch of sesame oil. The final bell. Picture this. It's 1979, and the diner breakfast culture that had sustained Americans for decades is beginning to show signs of strain as fast food chains expand their breakfast offerings and busy lifestyles demand quicker, more convenient options. The elaborate, leisurely breakfasts that had defined the decade were about to give way to drive-through efficiency and standardized portions. 20. The Last Call Special represented the final evolution of 1970s diner breakfast culture, combining all the elements that had made these meals special into one magnificent farewell feast. This ultimate breakfast featured 2 eggs cooked to order, thick-cut bacon, breakfast sausage, hash browns, pancakes, French toast, fresh fruit, and a side of grits or oatmeal. Essentially every popular breakfast item served on one enormous platter. The preparation required skill and timing to ensure that every component was served hot and fresh, while the presentation showcased the abundance and generosity that had defined diner culture throughout the decade. As the 1980s dawned, McDonald's would introduce the Egg McMuffin nationwide, and breakfast would never be the same. The elaborate, made-to-order platters that had fueled America through the 70s would give way to wrapped sandwiches eaten in cars on the way to work. But for those who experienced this final celebration of diner breakfast culture, the memory of abundance, quality, and unhurried morning meals would remain a touchstone for what breakfast could be when time, care, and generosity came together on a single plate. And there you have it, 20 forgotten diner breakfasts from the 1970s that disappeared forever. These weren't just meals. They were morning rituals that brought communities together over coffee and conversation, creating connections that lasted long after the last bite of hash browns. From the hearty working man's platters to those final experimental fusion dishes, each breakfast told the story of an America that understood breakfast was worth taking time for.